All right, welcome everyone to we don't know exactly what it's called yet. Either it's called a show, a podcast, a roundtable conversation, but essentially it's called In the Driver's Seat, driving business value all the way to a successful exit. And Stephen and myself are partners at Denver Business Coach, and we have been in this conversation for a long time with our clients, with our network, with our strategic partners, and really want to make this conversation of building a valuable and eventually sellable business more accessible to people that are interested in that conversation. And so there's a few statistics that are really driving why we're doing that. And Stephen, I think I'm going to let you uh, share those with us because they're really at the foundation or at the root of what inspires us to do the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So,
Yeah,
Stephen.
awesome. Yeah, so the stats that you're referring to, I talk about it all the time. It's 3 out of 4 businesses that go to sell their business do not actually sell. And this number does not include the ones that just decide to shut down, which is probably a much higher number. We're only tracking the ones that actually try to sell that don't. This is coupled with the stat of anywhere between 70 and 90% of business owners' overall wealth is tied up in their business. So when you think of why this is a problem, think about owning your business, working in it for 20 something years and saying one day, hey, I want to sell this and cash out and live the rest of my life on my retirement, or just the money that you want to fund your next adventure with, and then realizing that you can't. When you go to sell it, it's an unsellable company. It's not transferable, and it's a pretty big hit for a lot of people. We know a lot of business owners that have gone through this path. Some of them are our clients, where they go to a broker or M&A professional, and they get a number back that they're not happy with a low valuation, or the broker M&A person says, I can't sell it. It's an unsellable business. So that's kind of what inspires us to do the work that we do. Is we really want to combat those numbers and make sure that business owners have a sellable business that can really fund. Most of us don't actually retire, but can fund the next venture of their life. So that's what we're really looking to achieve.
Yeah. And I think one thing to add maybe to that is the reality that most people and most business owners don't actually engage in this conversation till they're like really close to the exit. So, we always say, yeah, if you're looking to sell within a year or two, there's maybe a little bit of like lipstick we can put on it when we work with them, but your business is where it's at that point, versus if you start being aware of what makes a business a sellable asset, or what is allowing you to have options to then transfer it or whatever you want to do with it, and you have enough time to build towards that, is a whole different thing than the disappointment of you just assume something to be true about the value of your business that you're not fact checking until 1 or 2 years out, and then you're realizing, oh my god, I'm actually not where I wanted to be.
Yeah, I've joked about, well, I guess joked isn't the right word, but talked about how business owners will go, and the perception of selling a business is like selling a house. You go to an agent, you say, hey, I want to list it for sale, and then in Colorado it's bought the next day. But that's what a lot of business owners think the reality is of selling a business, and it's actually a much more complicated process than that. So we're here to shed the light on what that is and what an acquirer looks for, and try to plug the holes and increase the value of the business, so business owners are not met with that disappointment.
Yeah. Well, let's start there. What is one of the tools that we use to kind of like do an initial benchmarking of where a business is at on their journey of value, and then on their journey of actually being a sellable asset. I know at Denver Business Coach, we have a few of them.
Mm.
One of them is the Value Builder questionnaire and then the corresponding the report that comes along with that. Do you maybe want to just introduce that a little bit?
Sure. So the Value Builder questionnaire, Value Builder assessment is a tool we've been using for many years. And how we mostly use it is to help benchmark a business, understand the estimated range of value of a business, and then also how the business measures up on the 8 different drivers uh, of a valuable business. And a lot of what it's measuring is the risk to an acquirer of acquiring the business. And we talk about it all the time. Risk and value have the inverse relationship of, the higher risk, lower the value, lower the risk, higher the value. So it actually works as a benchmarking tool and the beginnings of an action plan for us when we're working with our clients and saying, hey, you're really low in this driver, so let's put together an action plan to increase the needle, move the needle a little bit more in this particular area of the business so that we can increase the value, decrease the risk.
Yeah, I think one thing that I really like about it is because it is broken out in these 8 different drivers, it gives most business owners look at their business and they have maybe some understanding of value is a a multiple of EBITDA or earnings or seller discretionary earnings, or they have some kind of formula in mind. And so all they're looking at is really just profitability, maybe, and then average, their revenue, versus really being able to access the business through the different lenses of like those 8 distinct drivers. And when we do the assessment, we often uh, help the business owner understand their business in a way that they haven't necessarily looked at it. And obviously we do that through questions. And some of those questions are uh, helping us to, like you said, benchmark where they're at, but also helping the business owner to start seeing their business through maybe a little different lens than what they've been looking at it. And so as part of this conversation, we want to maybe zoom in on a few of those questions and just talk about, what is the question and why is it important, and then possibly also what are some things, if you're not scoring high on the response, what are some actions that you could do to actually strategically work on your business to improve value and salability.
Mm-hmm.
I think
go ahead.
Yeah, I think for today we kind of like started out with looking at customers a little bit. And I think I'm going to just start with one of the questions and zoom in. And Stephen, I'll read it to you, and then maybe you can interpret it a little bit in terms of what that means for a business owner. So yeah, let's just start out with the first one. Which of the following best describes the exclusivity of your business to your customers? Option 1 is we sell a commodity, product or service that our customers can get from many other suppliers. Option 2, we sell a product and service that our customers can get from a few other suppliers. Option 3, we have a niche product or service that is unique in the marketplace, so our customers would have to work hard to find a supplier that provides what we're selling. Or number 4, we have a monopoly on the service or product that we sell. So how does that tie in with value and sellability of a company?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think when most people hear that question, monopoly, like they think of something like oil or gas or something that or Xfinity in Colorado. And they think, oh, I'm not a business that's ever going to have a monopoly on the what I sell. I'm an electrician. There's hundreds of those, and that's not necessarily what we're talking about here. Too, it's really about the differentiation that you have within the marketplace against your competitors. So, you might be an electrician and everyone can work on an outlet, or, install a ceiling fan. But what other value are you bringing to the table? And the idea here is in how to compete in your marketplace and really separate yourself from, all other electricians and say, I'm over here, is to increase, to add more value to what your customers are getting in however form that is that you can figure out. It's not saying, oh, I'm an electrician and I will have a monopoly on providing electrical services. It's saying, what additional value, what more can I bring to the table that my competitors are not doing? How can I show that I am just so much more different, that it's apples to oranges instead of apples to apples when a customer is comparing your business to another? So that's kind of the angle that I will take with this particular question of, how are you using technology? I'm going to stick with the trades area. It's, are you using a GPS locator when your customers are expecting you to come in and they can track it like they can track an Uber Eats delivery driver? That's huge value that your competitors aren't going to be able to do. So in that sense, if no one else is having that GPS tracker, for instance, you're kind of a monopoly in that sense. Is you're providing so much more value that your customers see the perception of that GPS tracker, for instance, is just putting you in a class of your own. So you're really just the question revolves around how are you competing in the marketplace, and we just want to figure out how you can separate yourself from the rest. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot in the trades. Like examples would be like having very narrow arrival windows, for example, for services rather than the, do you want us to come between 8 and 1 p.m. or or 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. Or also, and then I think one thing is actually having a unique selling proposition or something that sets you apart. And then the other is how well are you doing in communicating that value proposition as well. And does your, you can have a whole set of like, master electricians, and you're the only company that has only master electricians working potentially, but are you actually articulating that, or do people find out, like after the fact, or it's really not used as a value position? So as it then relates to how does it impact the value and the sellability of the business, where does the business want to rank ideally on that scale of those 4 different answers?
Definitely further away from the commodity answer.
Yeah.
An acquirer is going to look at the business and say, they're going to look at the business that they're looking to buy, and they're going to look at the industry and they say, what really makes you different? And also, how difficult is it to make that big of a difference, so increase the value, that sort of thing. Because the other option that isn't talked about is starting their own. So if you're competing truly in a commoditized market and no one's differentiating, and you're just the exact same as the next guy, and the low barrier to entry, all that, what's to keep someone from starting their own version of it as well, as opposed to buying your company, because that's always going to be an option too.
Yeah.
And they're going to see if you're comparing, or if you're being more of a commodity, closer on that end of the spectrum, you're naturally going to compete on price. And once you compete on price, you discount until there's nothing left. And that's an owner coming into, or an acquirer coming into a business and seeing that's how they're competing, that's how they're able to win business. The work that they would have to do to actually create value and say that's not us, it's a lot. So to continue to innovate, to continue to separate yourself, to continue to figure out how you really are differentiating within the marketplace by, using technology or communication, or, however that is, that's a growth indicator, showing that a potential acquirer is, hey, we kind of figured out this innovation component. We're continuously separating ourselves from the rest. An acquirer is going to stick a way higher valuation on that type of a business than, electrician is the same as this one, the same as this one, the same as this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and this is probably a whole different conversation of the higher the differentiation is, the more you can set your own pricing, the more profitable it is. And that just becomes a perpetual circle where you can then reinvest money in marketing or innovation and things like that as well.
Mhm.
Um, okay, great. So maybe let's take one more question.
Yeah.
I love this question because I always think it kind of like surprises existing business owners. Let's go with, which of the following best describes your personal relationship with your company's customer?
Mhm.
Number one, I know each of my customer by first name, and they expect that I personally get involved when they buy from my company. Number two, I know most of my customers by first name, and they usually want to deal with me rather than one of my employees. Number three, I know some of my customer by first name, and a few of them prefer to deal with me rather than my employees. Or number four, I don't know my customers personally and rarely get involved in serving an individual customer.
I
Uh,
know everyone by first name. They want to deal with me. I'm the best. Uh, that's the answer that business owners, a lot, I would say 80% of the business owners I've talked to are proud of that. I would say, yeah, everyone wants to deal with me. I'm the owner of the company, and in actuality, an acquirer sees that as a very high risk in a business, and will significantly devalue the business because of that. It's a very good indicator that the business owner is the star of the show, and the question becomes, is there a business without the owner? So the best answer there is, I know no one, none of my customers, they don't want to deal with me, they don't know my name. To be able to separate yourself from the operations of the business, from customer facing situations, that's what's going to drive, is what's going to award a higher multiple for the business.
yeah. And I think, so some of it is, ego in a certain way where a business owner wants to be involved and they take pride of being the one who knows and can solve problems. But also for most businesses, it starts out like that as a necessity, because you rarely does an electrician start out with like we talked about, a new monopoly or a crazy unique selling proposition. Where they really differentiate themselves in the beginning. So a lot of it is through personal relationships, really catering to the client, hoping for repeat business or for referrals. So being like very hands-on with the customer they're serving. And that kind of like carries through, and that gets them to a certain level of success also, that they might not have the funds for marketing or for more leverage client acquisition strategies. And so, but there's a real letting go that needs to happen at some point to position your company really for a successful exit. And a lot of it is very emotional too. And like we talked about, there's sentiment, there's a little bit of ego involved, and trust. I think like the ability to delegate to their
Yeah.
employees in a way that they will take care of the customers and the company the same way that the owners would. So yeah, we usually get a lot of surprises out of that. Like, why is that? And
Wait a
I love
second.
that. But that's really the mindset shift of, are you looking at a company through the lens of an eventual exit and what do you need to do? Or are you just looking at, I want to keep having really happy customers, and you actually, like you said, have an inverse effect on value and salability.
To for business owners, that step in when there is a problem, when it gets escalated, when they have a team and a customer has an issue with whatever service or product that they're delivering, and maybe the team internally uh, turns to the owner, and the owner automatically steps in and says, I'll solve this, don't worry. um, that's a good indicator also within this question of the owner's involvement or unwillingness to let go too. So instead of saying, "Hey, customer service representative," or whatever, This is how I would handle the situation. This is how you go back to the client, go talk to them about this, X, Y, Z, do this, do that, and then let them handle it. That's more of that component of a business owner really empowering their employees and trusting them to take care of the situation. If it needs to escalate to the owner, it needs to escalate to the owner. But we got to try that first instead of the owner just saying, "I got it, I'll step in." And that's another indicator that I think does speak to this question a little bit
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I see that literally today I had a conversation where the justification for not empowering the employee is we're behind, we need to get caught up. It's much faster if I do it myself. And so, but that never changes in a certain way, right? So it's just another version of no, at some point you got to put on the brakes a little bit and really spend time with your employees and your team, helping them uh, solve problems and only escalate when it absolutely needs to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Okay, good. I think for today, those were two really important questions to consider. I hope this was to the listener helpful and provided some insight and maybe some new perspectives. More to come. And like we said, like our goal really is to bring this conversation of how to build a valuable and eventually sellable company front and center, even if you're like 10 years out, but having those kind of understandings and start thinking along those lines is just going to make all the difference and help you ultimately liquidate and take possession of the asset that you're building rather than just seeing it evaporate, unfortunately. And yeah, thank you, Stephen. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. That was fun.
And we'll be back.
Yeah, the next one.
Take care, guys.